Welcome back to the Code Maven channel. In this video, we're going to see two issues while adding a continuous integration to a Python package. So I was browsing the PyDigger website, the statistics on the PyDigger website, and I bumped into this package called once-utils that had a link to its GitHub repository, but it was indicated that it doesn't have any continuous integration. So I visited the GitHub repository. And indeed, luckily there were some tests in the test directory, but there was no continuous integration. So I forked it and tried to run the test first of all locally, and found out that it needs some extra thing to be installed. Specifically, there is this one of the test files. It's called test CMD. It expects Gradle to be installed, and it could be installed, it could work with Python and Git, but it also expects Gradle to be installed. And it's sort of not a standard thing, not that easy maybe to install on continuous integration server. So I decided that in order to be able to add continuous integration GitHub actions easily without trying to figure out how to install Gradle on this computer, instead of that, I decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the tests only for the other two files. Not ideal, but I think it's better to set up continuous integration even for a subset for the test, and then later figure out how to run the others, than not to have it at all. So that was one thing that I had to keep in mind. And the other one that I found out while running the test is that it doesn't have a list of requirements. So if we're going to look at the fork that I created, and we're going to take a look at the file that I actually added, well, it's already here on my computer, so we can take a look at the file, GitHub. What I found out is that there are two modules, two Python modules that were required by this package, by the test at least, HTTPX and requests, and they were not listed anywhere in a requirements file. So that was one of the things that I created. I created a requirements file. This is what you can see here, and those two lines that were there. And in the GitHub Actions, I also needed to install PyTest, because obviously that doesn't exist. And PyTest is not a requirement of the package, it's only needed for the testing. So that's why I didn't add to the requirements file. So that's what we have here. First, we install the PyTest, and then all the packages that are listed in the requirements txt. And then we just check what is the current version of Python. And then we run the PyTest for these two test files, not all the test files, as I said. I also had to disable testing on Windows because that failed. So if we go back now for a minute to the actual results, here you can see the results. The first thing, it started to fail, and I was so ideally, to find out what are the requirements, you would use a clean virtual environment locally and then start running the tests, and then it will complain about which packages are needed, and then you would add them to the requirements file and install them locally. And that way, locally, you would find out what is needed. I was a bit lazy, and I'm using like a huge virtual, and that's not really the ideal way to do this, but it's easier for me. So instead of doing it locally, I just pushed it out to the GitHub and let it run. And so I had to luckily do only 3 loops while I added this PyTest and then the 2 additional requirements. But that's the reason there are a couple of failures. Then it's at this point, you might see, it said that it passed on Ubuntu, on all 3 versions of Ubuntu, including the 3.11 release candidate, and in macOS it only passed on 3.2 and 3.10. And the thing what really happened is that it failed on Windows, and that's why, and it was skipped on the other ones. But I didn't pay attention, and at first I thought that just this is not available on GitHub Actions. So at first I removed the whole testing on the release candidate, 3.11 release candidates, that only late, and that's what you can see here. So this is the result here. So you can look at here that here you can, it's running on Ubuntu and Mac OS, not on Windows anymore, and not on the release candidates. And then I realized that my mistake and added back the release candidate. So that's how we ended up now with 6 versions in this matrix. Of course, you can have more versions, added more Python versions if needed. And now only the Windows is disabled. And let's just take a look at it. So this is, I think, what is failing on Windows. I didn't want to take a deeper look at what's actually the problem here. Maybe it's easy to fix. But I hope that the author of this package is going to accept the pull request, and then they will be able to fix the Windows thing and enable it themselves. So that's it. I think there are not a lot of things to do here. Luckily, these 2 things could be fixed easily or implemented easily. But that's the sort of the way. So I hope that this video will help you as well, knowing how to add continuous integration, GitHub Actions specifically to your Python package, and how to overcome various things. In any case, please go ahead and like the video and follow the channel, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.